This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Not controversial to me, but let's face it, a lot of people have their opinion. Now, if you're really honest with yourself, there's only one way to go. There's no other choice. If you're dishonest with yourself, you can choose the path that I'm going to rip the living you-know-what out of. But I'm using this as an example, not because I think, for example, racial inequality will be solved on this podcast. No, I'm bringing this example up, and I will expand on this for the simple rationale that if you compete in a dishonest system and you allow dishonest players to control you, and you know they're going to do it from the very beginning, you're masochistic. You've got a problem. The reality is, and again, I'm going to elaborate on this after I go through this great example. The reality is you only have you. It's you to start a business. It's you to be an entrepreneur. It's you to be a trader. It's you to invest in a piece of farmland. It's you. Now for the example. Dateline, August 2nd, affirmative action battle has a new focus, Asian Americans. Now, as I know most Americans, and look, I've spent the better part of many years living in Asia, but most Americans, especially black and white, really don't care about anything that says Asian American in it. Sadly, this is very true. 100% true. It's the super qualified, super successful, work their rear ends off, get the best grades. It's the group that's ignored in the United States of America. And I'm generalizing here because I know most Americans, and I'm not trying to criticize you. It's just an issue of not having traveled, but I hate to even generalize when I say the word Asian American because you're talking about very disparate countries, from Japan to China to Korea, moving on down, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. These are very, very, very different countries. But for purposes of this podcast, Asian American works really, really well because even though all those countries I just mentioned are very, very different, they have one thing in common. These kids study like no tomorrow. They will bet everything on themselves. Their family will bet everything on them for those kids to study and learn and get the best damn grades. And you know how I know this? Because across America, whether it's the high school level or the college level, high school magnet schools, colleges, state colleges that are merit only, not some of this squishy stuff that I'm about to get into in a minute, but for the merit-only institutions of learning in America, Asian students, again, I'm generalizing with the term Asian, but it includes all the different countries I'm talking about. Asian students dominate. In fact, I don't know, accounting for what, 12 to 15% of the U.S. population, they're often 60 to 70% of some of the magnet schools in high school, 50% of some of the better colleges in America. A significantly small, relatively speaking, population in the general population, but in the populations of academia, they dominate because they know, here are the rules, here's what you have to know, get the best scores, you get in. Well, I don't know if you know this, but that's not how it works at Harvard or the other Ivy Leagues. They're private institutions. They can let in who they want. So even though you might think to yourself right now, Harvard only lets in the best, Harvard does not only let in the best. Harvard lets in people that are absolutely worthless because they're filling quotas. They're filling racial quotas. They are filling diversity quotas. It's nasty. It's gross. It's anti-American. Now, again, if you'll just stay with me for a second, even if you already disagree with my perspective, stay with me for a second and let me show you where I want to ultimately go after I rip the living you-know-what out of these quota systems. Let me read a passage from this New York Times article. The Harvard case asserts, and this is a case that will hopefully get to the Supreme Court, brought by many Asian American students. The Harvard case asserts that the university's admission process amounts to an illegal quota system in which roughly the same percentage of African Americans, Hispanics, whites, and Asian Americans have been admitted year after year despite fluctuations in application rates and qualifications. And to quote the guy that is in charge of this suit, he says, "It falls afoul of our most basic civil rights principles, and those principles are that your race and your ethnicity should not be something to be used to harm you in life nor help you in life." Well, gosh, that seems really straightforward. Who can disagree with that? Well, Harvard disagrees with that. What we really have in America these days is people attempting to fix racism or fix perceived racism with more racism. I mean, it's just nasty, vile behavior. Who can sit there with a straight face at a higher institution of learning and tell some Asian American student who has scored 30, 40% higher than a white kid or a black kid that you can't go to Harvard, we're letting in the black kid, and he got grades that were nowhere close to yours, but we're letting him in because we're trying to have a, quote, diverse student body. How terrible is that? How must that feel to the kid that has spent his whole life pushing? In contrast, and the article goes on to talk about this, Asian Americans made up 34.8% of the student body at the University of California, Los Angeles, 32.4% at Berkeley, and 42.5% at Caltech. You know what? As much as people rip on California, at least in the current moment, California bans racial preferences. They did this through a referendum in 1996. So all of these very well thought about public universities in California show the disparity. They show that you're getting, frankly, 15% Asian Americans getting into the Ivies, but the top state schools in California, 35, 45%. So clearly, a significant number of Asian American students are being left out of Harvard and the other Ivies in the name of some type of majorly effed up diversity nonsense. Now let's get into the real meat of why I even bring this up. America is in love with race wars. America loves the idea black, white, white, black. But they leave out the Asian students. As I've said from the top of this conversation, they leave out the Asian students. But if you think about it, who will they might leave out next? Maybe they'll leave you out if you have a certain political persuasion. Maybe they'll leave you out if your parents have a certain political persuasion. Clearly, what's happening in American universities, and I can't speak for the rest of the world, because America right now is in the middle of this identity politics nonsense, where it is more important to what your skin tone hue is, to whether or not you're one of 6 million different genders. All that stuff is more important than merit. Merit is not important in the United States of America. I can't look at this New York Times article and say to myself, oh yeah, America, the home of equality, the home of merit. Well, first off, there's no such thing as equality. It just doesn't exist. It's ridiculous. But we can measure merit. Now look, it's a whole different subject. to go down the rabbit hole of this type of education. I would argue that many of these Asian kids that spend their lives getting the best grades are not necessarily served by chasing that particular dream, because these universities train you for one thing. They train you, and this is where I hinted at the beginning of this conversation where I want it to go. They train you to serve the man, to work for the man. So you spend your whole life trying to get into the university of your choosing, and you work your rear end off to get there. And then you get there and you get the great grades, but when it's all over, what happens? What happens? You see this racial nonsense going on in America right now? It's never going to be solved. Too many people are in power to push their agendas, to use their power to select their buddies, whoever their buddies happen to be. Their buddy who happens to have the right skin tone, their buddy who happens to have the right political preference, their buddy who happens to have the right made-up gender for that particular week. So what can you do? If the system's not fair, you got to make a choice. You got to make that choice really early. Teens, the best time to make it. 20s, the best time to make it. You got to choose. Are you going to start a business? Are you going to be an entrepreneur? Are you going to be a trader? Are you going to be an investor? Because if you're going to choose that direction, you are absolutely wasting your time by competing in a system that is completely unfair, with no measurable that you can even understand. Because this has all become a backroom, unfair type situation. Asian kid gets the great grades, he can't get into the university. Dumb white kid, dumb black kid gets grades that completely suck, he gets in. Now, as Americans, we should all detest that. But for whatever reason, there is this bias towards Asian Americans. There is this, I don't really care about that group. The major media in America will go bonkers over white issues. It will go bonker over black issues, go bonker over Hispanic issues, building the wall and all that kind of stuff. But Asian Americans just kind of slide under the radar, and they catch a lot of abuse that doesn't get a lot of press. Again, that's not going to change, because fundamentally right now, there's something wrong with America. I'm not the first person to say this. My gosh, all you have to do is go back and read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. She nailed it all, in the 50s? None of it's changed. It's all the same. And that gets back to my big point right now. Working for the man won't get you there. Oh yeah, look, you can have a great life. You can have some security. You can go on vacation for 2 to 4 weeks every summer. You'll feel very comfortable with your neighbors. They won't detest you because you've made $1 million or $5 million or $10 million. You'll be right there with them. But if you want something different, if you don't want to be caught up in a system like these Asian kids are being caught up in, and let's face it, it doesn't help the black kids either. It doesn't help the white kids either. Because if they really can't do the work, they're going to get out of school and have nothing anyways. It's up to you. It's you looking in the mirror. Right now, everyone on this planet has access to not only information, they have access to knowledge, and they also have access to context. Whether it's the right blogs, the right YouTube channels, the right podcast. If you want to know how this all works, the dirty underbelly, the seedy underbelly of what it really means to have a Harvard degree. And right now, it doesn't mean something very good. Sorry, all of my friends that have Harvard degrees, because this is detestable. The only thing that we should all care about is merit. The only thing that we should all care about is competition. Put a clean playing field out there and let the best win. Why in the world across the globe are professional sports so popular? Football, as Americans call it, soccer, so popular worldwide. American football, so damn popular. Baseball, basketball. Because ultimately, we can see the field. You put the people out there, you compete, and the winner wins. That's the way it goes. We all love that deep down. As kids, we love the idea of knowing what's the obstacle. We can overcome the obstacle. We can compete. We can practice. We can get better. But when there are backroom deals going on and all kinds of other nonsense that you can't control, and are you starting to see the parallel between the university admission process and the Ivy Leagues, something that's not definable, and fundamental trading? Right. It's not definable. Fundamental trading is not definable. There's nothing you can hang your hat on. How many fundamentals do you have to know? What fundamentals do you know? The list never ends. How do you use those fundamentals to make a decision? Ridiculous. You don't. Hell, fundamentals, even show me how it's even tied to making good trading decisions. And don't give me the example of Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio or Howard Marks. Come on. That doesn't float. Yes, they're brilliant men. How does that float for you? It doesn't float for you. You see, once you have this thought process, and I'm tempted to call it the trend following thought process, you look at things clearly, and you say, gosh, okay, that makes sense. I can see the playing field. Let's say you're a trend following trader. You can see the playing field. You know what the markets are. I got people complaining all the time, I don't know what the secret sauce is. The secret sauce, if you're complaining about the secret sauce after reading one of my books, you're never going to know what the sauce is. You have no clue. You don't want to know the clue. You want to be in a state of cognitive dissonance. You want to be blinded. It's a tricky world these days. Again, as I said, all of the information is out there. The knowledge is out there. The context is out there. You can go onto this podcast right now and you can find interviews that you will not find anywhere else, ever. They only exist here. Now, I got to tell you, I am damn envious. Well, I'm not really envious, but it would be cool. I'm envious of how many millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of listens Tim Ferriss has on his podcast. But Tim is never going to have the exact same guests that I have, and nor will I have the same that he has. Sure, there's going to be some overlap, but some of these people that you will find on the Trend Following podcast, their thinking, their clarity, it's just magnificent. And it buttresses, it backstops every damn word that I'm saying today. It's you. It's you alone. You've got the sword in your hand, you're running across the field, and you've got to put that sword into the belly of the competition. Period. If you don't, you're working for the man. I'm not saying it's bad to work for the man. This is just the reality of what it is. So getting back to the crazy admission policies of Harvard, the unfair, dishonest admission policies. If you're that Asian kid, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing? Why are you going to spend 10 years of your life studying to be the best student to then have the so-called best universities treat you like shit? Why would you do that? You shouldn't do that. You should not do that. It's time for everyone to have a plan that's awake to the idea that you don't need the man. You don't need the system. All you need is yourself. Now, if you're going to be a business person, a trader, an investor, then it's about the business of serving your clients. Give them value, they give you money. That's how it works. You have the good trading system, it works, you make money. It's very clean. It's very honest. If you have a bad trading system, you don't make money. If you don't give value to your clients, they leave you. But the other direction's dead. The other direction is 100% dead. The idea that you think, and trust me, plenty of people think this, the idea that you think the formal degree will get you there. We'll get you across the finish line. It's all bullshit, man. It's all 100% bullshit. I can't think of one damn thing. Well, sunk cost and opportunity cost. But beyond that, the stuff that went into my newest edition of Trend Following, out right now in 2017, almost 700 pages? That's not from school. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that I'm all that. I'm just telling you that what's in that book is not from school. It's not in schools. Go listen to my podcast episode with Campbell Harvey. He's in the newest Trend Following book. He's a professor at Duke. He says flat out, this content doesn't exist in universities. If you want an indoctrination, if you want to be part of the fraternity, if you want to be part of the sorority, if you want to give group hugs to people that you really don't like, if you want to say yes, sir, to an asshole for your whole life, then please, God, go down the path of memorizing everything in your teen years, getting the best grades, and then being stood up by Harvard because Harvard was doing a power play to make some kid that was stupid look good. It's only you. I'm going to keep beating that drum. That's what I do in this podcast. I've been doing it since 2012. Damn, that's a long time. 2012. How many weeks would it take you to listen to this whole podcast? Quite a few. But that's the journey. Jump on. Trust yourself. Let go of all the teams. Let go of the groups. It's you and it's you alone. And let me tell you, when you go down that you alone path, it's really fulfilling. It's fun. It's exciting. We got too much dead weight surrounding all of us. Too much dead weight in the form of, dead weight people, dead weight ideas. Letting it go is exhilarating. Letting it go and going into overdrive. Man, that's some fun stuff. I just love it. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, Trend Following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.